If you're new to Deception Bytes, hit the like and subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell to be notified of future videos. If you wish to support the channel, the links are in the description below. Now, fasten your seatbelt. Here we go. Okay guys, it is Tuesday, April 16th, and it is 9:03 p.m. Eastern Time. This video is going to be a little bit different because it's going to be dedicated solely to the fire at Notre Dame. Now, I did mean to bring a video last night, but I had spent the day in really deep research, and then by the time the evening came, I really didn't feel like I could bring the other news without bringing Notre Dame, but I wanted to give myself an opportunity to really dig into it, which I have been doing. And I don't believe the narrative that they're putting out at all, and I'll tell you why. But I'm going to present the evidence, and I'm going to let you decide. I don't know if there are any Q posts today, but I will check when I'm done this. I am planning on doing another video when this is done. So at least, we will cover the other news. But I do want this out there. I want this concentrated into one video so that if you want to share it, you can. And I'm going to keep my chatting to an absolute minimum because this is really not a topic to joke about at all. It's very serious, and I know that a lot of news that we cover is serious, and sometimes I cover it very tongue-in-cheek, but I don't want to do that here. So let me go over and let's start and get into this, and I'll let you decide. I'm just going to bring you the evidence, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that I may not offer my opinion, but I'm going to bring the evidence, and you can decide what you believe has happened. All right, first, let's go to President Trump and his statement on the fire, because I think there's some interesting tidbits here. All right, now let's listen to what, excuse me, I'll get back to where we were here. All right, now, let me get down here.
Terrible fire. You probably saw, some of you have heard, some of you have not because you've been here, but I will tell you the fire that they're having at the Notre Dame Cathedral is something like few people have witnessed. And when we left the plane, it was burning at a level that you rarely see a fire burn. It's one of the great treasures of the world. The greatest artists in the world. Probably, if you think about it, I would say, Jovita, it might be greater than almost any museum in the world, and it's burning very badly. It looks like it's burning to the ground. So that puts a damper on what we're about to say, to be honest, because that is beyond countries, that's beyond anything. That's a part of our growing up. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of our lives. That's a truly great cathedral. And I've been there and I've seen it, and there's no cathedral. I think I could say there's probably no cathedral in the world like it. It's a terrible scene. They think it was caused by, at this moment they don't know, but they think it was caused by renovation. And I hope that's the reason. Renovation, what's that all about? But it's a terrible sight to behold.
Now, there's a few little tidbits in there that can give us clues into what our president actually thinks about this. Now, I'm just going to back this up a little bit. I'm not going to play it, but just to read here, he says, but they think it was caused by renovation. And then he says, and I hope that's the reason. Now, why would he say that? And I hope that's the reason. Because that is the reason officially that's been given. So it's odd that he would say, and I hope that's the reason. And then he says the following, renovation, what's that all about? Now, we're talking to a man that knows a lot about building, a lot about architecture, a lot. He's not stupid, regardless of what anybody thinks. So he's questioning it. And you can tell that by his response. He's being, tactful, diplomatic, but it's quite evident that he doesn't believe that it was caused by renovation. Now, do any of you? I most certainly didn't. When they said, yes, it's been caused by renovation, I know this one eyebrow went way up, and I went, no, there's something wrong there. Now, I'll tell you where my mind first went, and I think that probably it's where your mind first went. Who would want to burn down a Christian cathedral? Who would want to do that? Well, I know where our minds went, first of all, but I don't believe that's who did it. I don't. Now, it may turn out that I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But let me bring you all the evidence, and you tell me. All right? So we've listened to Donald Trump and what he has had to say, and let's go to Reuters here. And this gives us a very good picture of an aerial view. At this point, the spire, I do believe, has already fallen, but perhaps not. We're going to see some interesting things here. Not in this picture, but as we move ahead. Now, it says everything. Now, let me see. Up here it says, a fire at the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France, has destroyed most of the roof and collapsed the church's central spire. Eyewitness videos show smoke and fire engulfing the jewel of Gothic architecture. The blaze broke out in the scaffolding around the spire on Monday afternoon. Paris firefighters confirmed, adding that the blaze broke out in the scaffolding around the spire on Monday afternoon, Paris firefighters confirmed, adding that a major operation to tackle the fire is underway. Now, I disagree with that. I disagree that there was a major operation to tackle the fire. I disagree with that. I believe they let it burn. Now, okay, I know that's going to be really controversial to people, and I know it's going to upset people, but I'm going to show you why I think this, and we're going to take a look at a video made by an actual French person. Not just a French person, but I mean, somebody there is what I meant. Just because you're French doesn't mean you know what happened. So let's come down here, and again we see the aerial picture. Everything is burning. There won't be anything left of the wood frame, and that in fact is what occurred. Everything burnt. The wood frame actually burnt. Of course, the stone, the flying buttresses and so forth, they're still intact, and it could be rebuilt from the inside. However, how do you ever match the level of craftsmanship that went into that cathedral? It took 200 years to build, and it stood through 2 world wars. It stood through storms. It stood, hundreds of years, and yet this fire destroyed it. Destroyed all of the interior, destroyed all of the framework except for the stone. All right, let's come down here. More pictures. Here, smoke billowing from Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France, and down here, there have been no reports on casualties. It is unknown what might have caused the fire. The medieval cathedral is one of the main attractions of the French capital, seeing 12 million tourists a year, more than the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower. So even more than the Eiffel Tower or the Louvre, the Notre Dame Cathedral is the centerpiece, the symbol of Paris, France, and France itself. So interesting, just I find it odd. Now, I'm going to keep going on. I'm trying not to say too much, but, I have not been to Notre Dame, but my family certainly has, and my extended family have been there, and I've seen many, many pictures, but I don't believe that anyone probably that hasn't actually been there and experienced it could actually know. It's like so many people told me about the Grand Canyon. I had family that went, I had seen pictures, and I thought, oh, I know what the Grand Canyon is. Well, when I visited it, I was moved to tears by the grandeur of it. And as the sun set, the shadows on the canyon, it's like you could take a million pictures and every single one of them would be different because as the sun sets and the shadows are cast. And I think it's an experience like that. It's so overwhelming, and the artwork and so forth, that it's so beautiful it will move you to tears. Now, and interestingly enough, a lot of the craftsmen, not a lot, all of the craftsmen that worked on Notre Dame, it took 200 years to build. That's a long time, 200 years. And none of their names were mentioned because they wanted the glory to go to God. They were crafting it as to the glory of God. They didn't want their names associated with it. They wanted, and I think that is just so incredible. But let's move along here because I don't want to draw this out too long. Notre Dame's roof and the central spire have been destroyed by the flames. The fire has also damaged some of the famous stained glass windows painstakingly recreated in the 1800s. So I'm just moving down here. Last week, 16 bronze statues representing 12 apostles and 4 evangelists from the New Testament were lifted off of the spire of the cathedral by crane. Well, isn't that coincidental? Don't you think? I do. Some scaffolding could be seen close to the flames leaping out near the cathedral spire before it toppled over. Do you think perhaps that, you know how they always tell us about their plans before they do it, right? We know that. It always shows up. They let us know what they're going to do plainly through movies, through all sorts of things. Do you think this was planned? Do you think this shows up anywhere in any media form before it happened? Sure does. We're going to be looking at that in a little bit. All right. Now, the spire itself was made of wood and covered with lead. It has long been in bad shape as elements of the construction dated back to the 12th century have been damaged by weather, pollution, and time, and yet it stood through 2 world wars and hundreds of years. Odd. Construction of Notre Dame began in 1163. Here's just something interesting for you. 11 and then 6 plus 3 is 9. 9/11. Interesting. It was extensively restored in the mid-1800s after Victor Hugo's novel about the hunchback bell ringer Quasimodo revived the public interest in the cathedral. So that's it for that story, and we're going to go back. Now, if you were like me, you automatically jumped to the conclusion that, well, who would want to tear down or burn down a Catholic cathedral? And you would automatically think a certain people group might have, or a certain religious group rather, would have had express interest in doing so. Well, I don't believe so. I don't believe it was them. However, they did take particular glee in its burning, as was captured by camera and has been shared across social media. I'm sure you've seen them. I'm sure you've seen the pictures, but in case you hadn't, I've got a couple here. Here's one. You can tell this woman is emotionally affected. Reminds me of the people on 9/11 that were looking up as the building was burning, their hands over their mouths and a look of horror in their eyes. A lot of them had tears in their eyes. And you didn't really see anybody on that day. I didn't, from any of the pictures that I've seen, see anybody taking a great deal of glee in it, although I know that there has been reports that there were certain people, happy that it had happened. But here we see this young lady, and then in the background we see some people that are pretty happy about this. And if you check on social media, you'll find a lot of people of this particular religious persuasion were extremely happy that it burned and were giving glory to Allah. All right, and here again we see a couple men quite overjoyed. There were people visibly celebrating its demise, which I find extremely disturbing because it's not just the fact that it is a religious symbol. It's a symbol for Paris. It's a symbol for France. And, you know, it contains priceless artwork and workmanship that will never be replicated, ever. It's lost. It's gone. Now, let's move on here, and I'm going to continue presenting you with the evidence that I have, or the information that I have. Now, this is a statement by France Police Union, okay? It's been translated into English. Now, this is their statement. Fire of Notre Dame, an unforgivable fault of the City Hall of Paris. The construction of the cathedral began in 1663. For more than 800 years, despite 2 world wars and a few revolts, this masterpiece of architecture has stood firm. You think about that. 800 years, political revolt, 2 world wars, and the cathedral stood through it all. But Notre Dame de Paris will not have survived the amateurism of our contemporary political class. Totally incompetent and incapable of preserving a treasure of our nation, listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This fire is not the fault of any luck. Now, I think what they're saying there is, oh yeah, it's just, you know, bad luck because we were renovating and part of the renovation it caught fire. Interesting how there was no casualties or anything, and this fire, you know, went up like, I mean, it's amazing how fast it burned, but no casualties. You would think that there would have been tourists in there at the time, or there would have, obviously, there had to have been men or women working on the spire, or else how did the fire break out, right? Because it's caused by renovation. That's what they're telling us. Renovation, right. Okay, so the fire is not the fault of any luck. If the cathedral caught fire, it was because those whose duty it was to protect it were incapable to do so. Shame on the mayor of Paris who has not taken all the necessary measures to avoid such a disaster. Now, this is the link that I got this from, and it's france-police.org. And let's go down. Now, this is another thing, but I think I'm going to come back to that. And let's go to Breitbart article here. Now, you're not going to hear this on the mainstream media or from the mainstream media. I can guarantee you that. So, 12 French churches attacked and vandalized in 1 week. Why wasn't that part of the reporting? Why was it when people tried to bring in that fact up that they were cut off immediately? And they were. I witnessed it. I don't know. Why would they not want people to know that? Isn't that part of the story? I guess they must have known that it wasn't. Or they didn't want people to know that it was. All right, 12 Catholic churches have been desecrated across France over the period of 1 week. And by the way, this is Holy Week. Sunday would have been what is called Palm Sunday. That is the Sunday, the time Jesus rode in on the donkey, and they took palm leaves and they were bowing, saying, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna to the King. And then a week later, they killed him. This is Holy Week for Christians. The recent spate of church profanations has puzzled both police and ecclesiastical leaders who have mostly remained silent as the violations have spread up and down France. Last Sunday, marauders set fire to the Church of Saint Sulpice, one of Paris's largest and most important churches, shortly after the 12 o'clock Mass. Now, oh, that's something totally different here. Police have concluded that the fire was the result of arson. Oh, that fire. Okay. At first I was going, what? No, that fire was arson. They've concluded that the fire in that church was arson and are now looking for possible suspects. The restoration of the church from the damage caused by the fire will reportedly cost several hundred million euros. In Nimes, I think that's how you pronounce that, Department of the Guard, near the border with Spain, the Church of Notre Dame was desecrated in a particularly odious way, with vandals painting a cross with human excrement, looting the main altar and the tabernacle, and stealing the consecrated hosts, which were discovered later among piles of garbage. Likewise, the Church of Notre Dame in Dijon, in the east of the country, suffered from the sacking of the high altar, and the hosts were also taken from the tabernacle, scattered on the ground, and trampled. In Lavar, in the southern district of Tarn, the village church was assaulted by young men who twisted one arm of a representative of the crucified Christ to make it appear as if he was making an obscene gesture. In the peripheries of Paris, in the department of I'm not sure how to pronounce that, several churches have suffered profanations of various importance in Maisons Lafitte and in not sure how to pronounce that either. I should, because I took enough French. But anyway. Although commentators have been reluctant to attach a particular religious or cultural origin to the profanations, they all share an evident anti-Christian character. Now, I'm not ruling out any particular religious persons that may have done this. I'm not ruling that out. I'm just saying that I have my doubts when we look at all the evidence, and it's coming. In recent months, anti-Semitic gangs have desecrated Jewish cemeteries, signing their actions with swastikas. In the case of the desecration of Catholic churches, the vandalism has spoken for itself. Ridicule of the figure of Christ on the cross and desecration of major altars. The Catholic hierarchy has kept silent about the episodes, limited themselves to highlighting that anti-Christian threat and expressing hope that politicians and police will get to the bottom of the crimes. They won't. That's just my feeling. Reports indicate that 80% of the desecration of places of worship in France concern Christian churches, and in the year 2018, this meant that profanation of an average of 2 Christian churches per day in France. That's right, 2 Christian churches a day. France isn't that big, folks. Not that big. Even though these actions rarely make the headlines. Oh, why would that be? Don't you think that would be big news? It's like a friend of mine that was talking to me about the churches that were burned in Louisiana, and I said, what? I didn't hear about that. I couldn't find it anywhere. Not in the news around here. Nobody knew about it. I was saying, hey, did you hear about the churches that burned it? No, nobody knew. Why wasn't that more widely reported? That's big news. Anyway, reports indicate that 80%, okay, we just read that. In 2018, the Ministry of the Interior recorded, get this, 541 anti-Semitic acts, 100 anti-Muslim acts, and 1,063 anti-Christian acts. So, obviously, the anti-Christian acts, twice that of the Jewish attacks, and 10 times that of the Muslim acts of vandalism against Muslim sites or Muslim mosque, or acts of vandalism or profanation against Jewish synagogues. So, yeah, much more hatred towards Christian churches, which, of course, should not surprise any of us. Now, let's go back. We've got more to cover here. And all right, now, DC, Argentina, Vatican City, there is a main target, but they want to make it look like radical attacks against the Catholic Church. More to come. How do you delete paper records with decades of crime? Where are these kept? Same reason for FBI, WA data dumps. Now, I don't know. It could be. Like I said, I'm bringing you the evidence, okay? And you can decide. Could it be that there are records that they wanted deleted? I don't know, because I don't think that that matches the if you look at these churches that have been damaged, these Catholic churches, I don't know if it's always been, because some of it has just been acts of profanation, like, twisting Jesus' arm so he looks like he's making an obscene gesture. That is not destroying records. That's a long way from destroying records. So I don't know. It could be. It might not be. Again, I'm like, I report, you decide. So anyway, look at this. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see this. Now, Da Vinci Code church fire, latest in string of Catholic church attacks in France. And Newsweek, Catholic churches are being desecrated across France and officials don't know why. Paris, after Notre Dame Cathedral deliberately set on fire on 17th of March. There's more than one Notre Dame. It's just that, the one that just burnt is the most famous, of course. Deliberately set on fire on 17th of March 2019. More than 10 French churches have been hit since the beginning of February. What is going on? What is going on? The attacks are not covered by French media, and the Catholic Church in France wants to play it low key. Now, I think that is interesting, that the Catholic Church is wanting to play it low key. Perhaps there are many reasons for that. Perhaps if they make a big fuss about it, they're afraid that more churches will be desecrated, more churches will be burned, or maybe it is that they are trying to hide something and destroy records. I don't know. Let's go on. Now, like I said, this all seems like a lot of information that's unconnected, but it is in a sense. And this is interesting. Isn't it fascinating that Michelle Obama just happened to be on a dinner cruise headed toward the Notre Dame Cathedral when the fire broke out? Now, no, I'm not suggesting that she or he had anything to do with it. No, I'm not. Not in the least. Do I believe that that's a coincidence? No. I think certain people knew it was going to happen, and we'll see more evidence of that as we go along. So here is Michelle Obama enjoying wine on this dinner cruise. Michelle Obama on Paris dinner cruise during Notre Dame Cathedral fire. Michelle Obama was living the good life in Paris when the news of the Notre Dame Cathedral fire totally changed the mood. Now, they did go ahead and finish their dinner and everything, which, is neither here nor there. But just interesting that she happened to be there. Now, she was promoting her book, Becoming Michelle Obama. Yeah. All right, now, let's go on. Let's look at this. Again, I am not, by reporting this, suggesting that they had anything to do with it, because we do not know at this point. Not ruling anything out. Not ruling anything out. I'm just saying this is not what it seems, and this was planned. And I have evidence. I think it's evidence. Allah est grande. Allah is grand, or great. Muslims laugh as blaze destroys Notre Dame Cathedral during Holy Week. If you laughed at a mosque burning, Trevor Noah, Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, Don Lemon, the New York Times, Boston Globe, ABC, NBC, CBS, etc. would be calling for your head. And Yes, they would. Authorities are investigating the cause of the inferno. I'm not going to say this word, but I'm pointing to it with my cursor. Reveled in the fire engulfing the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France, sharing media photos of the flames and billowing smoke and comments expressing their joy. Now, the roof and main spire of the cathedral has collapsed, and I have already shown you this picture. A whole lot of people with Arab names are finding the historic Notre Dame blaze very funny. Twitter user Damien Rio posted a video showing the amount of people responding to a video of the Paris church with a laughing face emoji. And then we have a sampling here of Facebook users taking delight in the tragedy. See if you notice anything in common. Bet they didn't lose their Facebook. I bet they weren't censored in any way. I could just about guarantee it. All right. Okay, let's take I'm not even going to try to pronounce these names, but here they are. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys on your smartphones. And here we are. It's just a sampling of names here of the people laughing and taking delight in its demise. You get the picture. Witnesses say the fire broke out at the 850-year-old cathedral earlier today. The roof and spire have collapsed, and officials believe nothing will remain. Well, that's not quite true. There's enough remaining that they could renovate. It would probably cost billions, I think. I don't know, but at any rate, it's quite now. And you see, this right here, you would think perhaps would be fire hoses or something going up to this. It's not. That's part of the cathedral. They're called flying buttresses, and was part of Gothic architecture at the time. Yeah, as we'll see, not a lot of fire hoses, not a lot at all. In fact, Donald Trump had said, couldn't they fly over and dump water on the fire? Yeah, why couldn't they do that? They do that here all the time. Forest fires, they fight that by air. You can't fight a fire that high up from the ground with fire hoses. I mean, that's trying to put out a raging forest fire with some spit. Not going to work. So why didn't they dump water on the fire? Why didn't they? Really? Why didn't they? Do you think a country as progressive as France doesn't have such equipment? Well, I would beg to differ. Let's go on. All right, and let's leave here, and let's go back, and we'll get into the next. Now, this is the next thing I want to play for you right here. Now, I really hate to do this because this person is the French person that I mentioned to you, and I'm going to leave a link to their video because they've obviously, I don't want to play his whole video because I think that's very unfair to him. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the parts that I think are really pertinent, although there are so many that I think you really do need to watch the entire video. It's not very long. I think it may be 12 or 15 minutes. Not going to take too much time out of your evening, but it will enlighten you quite a bit. So let's take a look at this next.
Breaking news, the Notre Dame in Paris has been burning since yesterday, and they say this was an accident. Accident, right? A great Tartarian building, symbol of Christianity, Paris and France, just like that burning down. Could it be another inside job? Let's investigate.
Okay, now I'm going to move it forward past the to about the 31 mark here. And there is going to be a link to this in the description below. Okay, so I would encourage you, to listen to the entire thing. It's 14 minutes and 58 seconds long. Not going to take too much time out of anybody's night. So if you really are interested in this, I think you will find this guy fascinating. You do have to listen a bit. He does have a thick accent, but obviously a very intelligent man, and I think I'm going to subscribe to his channel, to tell you the truth. All right, let's look at this.
First, and I'm opening up the live stream. I recorded this so that we can see what happened, and what I was already astonished by is that they have everything in place for a live stream, right? And why would they make it live rather than, dealing with the incident and sending their firefighters and quench the fire, right? And yet we have all these live streams showing us what is happening at the Notre Dame. And this was Yahoo News, live streaming. Now here's the next one, live streaming again. You can see that this is live from ITV News. And we can see this ridiculous fireman trying to quench the fire, right? That's what they are trying to show us. But he is not really aiming at the fire, he's aiming at the building. He's there as an actor, okay? And do you think that that's the only resource they have? One firefighter and one stream of water? I mean, give me a break. This is just crazy. They think we are really just mentally ill people who don't understand shit. Here's another one, live streaming again from Paris, NBC News. Everyone have their crew up.
Now, and I just interrupt this for a second because he's bringing up very good points. How was it that all these live feeds were in place? What a coincidence. All these live feeds, like NBC, all these people were just there reporting. Well, how did they know? Were they just were all the mainstream media sites on vacation in Paris? I mean, was there some sort of convention there or something for them? And they just happened to be there in case? Very odd. And he's bringing up very valid points. On 9/11, every single firefighter they had was streaming towards those towers. The place was lousy with firefighters. In fact, so many of them lost their lives tragically that day. Why is this place not crawling with firefighters? I don't get that. I really don't. And how about all these live feeds that were just there like that? Yeah, he's bringing up very good points. Let's go on.
There, investigating this, doing nothing, just looking at how it burns all down. And we can see in the bottom left corner how one single fireman is trying to quench the fire. But he is not really trying it, right? Because he's aiming at the scaffolding, okay? He's not aiming at the fire inside.
And why would you be aiming at the scaffolding? Really? The scaffolding will come down. The scaffolding was built during the renovation. I know we all realize how renovations work. They're scaffolding. And who cares if that's saved or not? Nobody cares. Save the church. But no, they're spraying the scaffolding. Right. Okay.
And you are telling me that there is just one fireman with one stream of water protecting this Tartarian building from the flames. Paris, the capital of France, and yet they have one single fireman for this? I mean, give me a break. This is just crazy. And here is another clip. This is not live, by the way. So we switch from live to recorded. The spiral is falling down. They definitely wanted to capture this one. They had everything in place so that they can report on it. NBC News, ITV, all of it. And here's another one, USA Today. They also had the crew there live, streaming everything set up, okay? So question it. How is it that all of these broadcasting companies have a reporter ready to broadcast live in Paris at the Notre Dame when it happens, okay? Because it was an...
Yeah, really. That's a very, very valid point that he's bringing up. Okay, if something major happened overseas, you know, sure, we would be getting our news via whatever correspondent was there. We, you know, if it happened in London, you know, they would be talking to their London offices or whatever and, you know, getting it. But all these people were live there and had set up all these live feeds. That takes time. Takes time to book a flight to Paris, to get there, to get the equipment set up. Come on, people. There's something really wrong with this. Really, really wrong. And we will see in a minute why. You saw it on every mainstream media news site, that spire falling. That was the iconic shot that they wanted, that spire falling. Representative of something. I have my ideas, and I bet you do as well.
Inside job, what else? They wanted to do this. They wanted to destroy the Notre Dame. And again, look at this. One stream of water aiming at the building. It's not aiming at the fire, as you can see. And the stream is not really strong because it just, you know, just licks.
See here. Yeah, look at this stream. It's hitting the stone. Well, the stone's not going to burn down. Just very odd. And yeah, it's not a very strong stream. And I realize that when you're coming, this is a massive cathedral. You know, I don't know how anyone could have fought this fire except by air. You know, yes, people on the ground and, you know, the ladders extended and so forth would help. But it needed, you know, you saw the aerial view with the fire. Now, why couldn't they have flown water over and dropped it on the fire? Why? That's done everywhere. Everywhere. All right. Let's go on here. And I think I made a note of somewhere else we need to be in here, 10:34. So let's go on just a little bit further into this, and then we're going to skip forward. I don't want to play this man's entire video because I do believe that it's disrespectful to him. He's put a lot of work and effort into this, and so I will leave a link to his work.
The building is just, you know, it's just like madness. Looking at movie, that's how it looks like. It's a theater. These are actors, you know. They want to destroy this. It's a drill. They are testing how people are reacting to that drill, whether their things are working. And of course, this is just an act. They don't want it to work. They don't want the fire to be quenched. And in this ABC News clip, we can see how the officers are leisurely walking like nothing happened. No urgency, it's a drill. In the following clips from CBSN, we will see 4 correspondents and 4 employees of CBSN that can report on the fire, and 2 of them, at least as far as I can tell, were on just vacation. Coincidence. They were just on vacation, happened to be just in the vicinity seeing all that is happening. Give me a break.
Yeah, not a coincidence. Just happened to be there. CBS employees just happened to be there. They were on vacation. I guess they had their cameras and everything though with them. I guess that's normal. And then there's Michelle Obama that's also in Paris at the same time. Coincidence? Don't know. Don't know. Now I'm going to skip ahead here. There's a lot of stuff in here. And you know, I really want you to hear all of this, but I don't feel that it's fair for me to play this man's entire video because I just don't think it is. But he does point out here, let me skip ahead just a bit here. He is pointing out here.
Of course, while the exterior is stone, there is so much wood in there that it would all go up so quickly.
The mayor in Paris is asking people to stay as far.
And I'm at a cafe with my family, and we're looking on the burning still now of the
on vacation, and we are on the balcony of an Airbnb that we're.
Yeah, look at that. Look at how many people are just happen to be on vacation there. All these news people. Interesting. Yeah, it says the emergency team was trying their best, but he's making the point. There's one fire hose here. What is that going to do?
So disheartening because they're fighting so hard.
Hi, I'm standing on l'île Saint-Louis, which is right across from l'île de la Cité, where Notre Dame is still in flames.
And again, we're only seeing one fireman. I'm not saying that there's only one fireman, but you would expect in any picture, you would expect that place to be crawling with them. Now I'm going to move ahead here.
Is that of the firemen's trucks and sirens arriving. I asked one of the bystanders, and he explained to me that this was the loss of a symbol of...
Where are the fighter fires here? Do you see any? Do you see any water being put on this? I don't.
Christianity in Europe. And although it might be rebuilt, this is what we were witnessing as we speak.
In this Yahoo News article, we see this picture where there is this sun partially blocked, and I wonder whether it really has to do with the sun, the smoke blocking the fake sun exchange, for instance. I don't know. But it's very interesting that exactly now there was this refurbishment project going on. They blamed it on that.
Yeah, they're blaming it on renovation. Okay, now let me skip ahead to, let me find the mark here. 1034. Let me see, 1034. We're already past that. Oh, no, we're not. 1034. Now, I don't happen to believe, this guy, you can tell that he doesn't have too much, faith or whatever in Trump. He said he believes that Trump is a puppet. I sincerely hope and pray he's wrong. But about this fire in Notre Dame, I think he's right on. Now, let's listen to this.
Involved saying, so horrible to watch the massive fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Perhaps flying water tankers could be used to put it out. Must act quickly. To which...
So this is what Donald Trump said. He tweeted this, and he's wondering, probably along with the rest of the world, like, it's so horrible to watch this cathedral burn down. And he's saying, why he's being diplomatic, but really what he's saying is, why the heck aren't you flying over it with water tankers and putting it out from the air? And he's saying you should be acting quickly or it's going to be lost. That's what he's doing. And let's listen to the response from the French.
Act quickly. To which the Sécurité Civile France responded saying, helicopter or plane, the weight of the water and the intensity of dropping it at low altitude could weaken the structures of Notre Dame and cause collateral damage to surrounding buildings. Really? When water is dropped, it starts to vaporize. So it's not that heavy, right? We can see that from the clouds. There is tons of water up there, and yet when it falls, what we experience is only just drops. So this is bullshit. And of course, this came at the right time. They say it is a focal point for French Roman Catholics who, like Christians around the world, are celebrating Holy Week, marking the death and resurrection of Jesus. So it had to happen now. They also say here there are a lot of artworks inside. It's a real tragedy. Perhaps that's why they wanted to burn this up from the inside, so that all those works would be lost. ABC News says Notre Dame hailed as monument to the best of civilization. Notre Dame, a survivor of wars and revolutions, has stood for centuries as not merely the greatest of the Gothic cathedrals and a towering jewel of Western architecture. It has stood, in the words of one shell-shocked art expert, as one of the great monuments to the best of civilization. And they say this here as some kind of programming. Civilization is just so fragile.
Is it? Is civilization not fragile? And now we're going to get to something very interesting. Those of you that are not believers, may think that I've lost my mind, but I think those of you that are believers and that have been following this from the perspective of Christianity and looking at world events as they fit into prophecy and so forth, biblical prophecy and so forth, will get this. Now, of course, if you're not a believer, you are always welcome on this channel. We may disagree on some things, but that's okay. That is what makes it interesting, I think, is that we don't all think alike. But from my point of view, this was meant as a symbol. It was meant as even 9/11 was meant. 9/11 marked, it was a demarcation. Everything changed after 9/11. And you know, a lot of people speak about events as in before 9/11 and after 9/11. Interesting, because I was babysitting my pastor's children the day that 9/11 happened. He and his wife had gone to preach out of town, out of state actually. They were in Texas, and I was in North Carolina looking after his children. And we were at the breakfast table, and I had to I can't remember. I must have been off. I was trying to remember why I wasn't working. But anyway, we were around the breakfast table and the phone rang, and I remember her, the oldest daughter answered the phone, and I could tell by the look that something horrible had happened. And she just looked shocked, and then she just handed the phone to me. And I thought, uh-oh, this isn't good. And they told me about 9/11, so we immediately left the breakfast table, went into the living room, turned the TV on, and we watched. And I remember saying to them, our world's never going to be the same. And the younger ones didn't get it because, they were like, well, this is boring. Can we watch cartoons? They didn't understand what they were seeing. They couldn't process it. But the two older children really did understand. And I remember saying, you know what? You're going to look back on this and you will forever view life as before this happened and after this happened. And that's exactly what it was. It's a demarcation. And let me tell you, this as well is meant as a demarcation mark, and it symbolizes something. And I'll tell you what I believe that it symbolizes. Now let me go back just a minute, because he represents, not there. Yeah. It is a focal point for French Roman Catholics who, like Christians around the world, are celebrating Holy Week, marking the death and resurrection of Jesus. Now, Holy Week indeed does mark the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I don't particularly, like Christmas, Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. Jesus was probably born in around September. They have proven that. I mean, they just used December 25th to mark his birthday, and I believe it's the same with Easter. Regardless, this is the week that Christians the world over mark both the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So, what did this represent? Well, I'm going to show you what I think. And like I said, I was going to present it all and let you decide, but I'm going to share what I think. You don't necessarily have to believe what I believe. That is completely your prerogative, and I will hold no disrespect or animosity towards anyone that does not believe what I believe. But let me get into that next. And there was something else up here that I skipped until later, and I wanted to take a look. Yes. Now, I do want to touch on this as well, because just before I get into this, now remember, this week represents the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. All right, let's look at this first, and then I'll show you the something that put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, or let me understand exactly what was happening here. Okay. South Carolina church vandalized with Islamic themed graffiti. So South Carolina church had 3 of its 125-year-old windows broken and was vandalized with Islamic graffiti that read, "Submit to God through Islam. Muhammad is his prophet," was also spray painted on the outside of Midway Presbyterian Church on Sunday hours after celebrating Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday was the Sunday that just passed. It would have been April 14th. So it was right after that. So again, this happened during Holy Week. And we're not going to get into all well, it's short anyway, but I did want to show you that. Just another church that's been vandalized during Holy Week. All right. Now, let's go back to here, and here is the coup de grace. Let's come down here. Got to find it again. And right here. All right. Now, I don't know if you guys remember me talking about it's an animation. It was done by a company called Heliofant, which is out of Quebec, Canada, and very interesting because when I first watched it, something went through me. I've always had an ability, which is perhaps why I am a visual artist, because I can find meaning in pictures very easily. Art always was very, very easy to me because I could look at a famous piece of art and say, okay, well, this is doing this, and this is this, and this is, I just always have had that ability. I think it was just born into me as part of my gifts and talents, I guess. But when I first saw this, I knew that it was more than just a little animation. That that a lot of things were encoded into it. It's not a pictogram, but it's kind of like that. There's a lot of information encoded into this. And yesterday, that was part of the research that I was doing because I started thinking, I need to go back through this with a fine-tooth comb. I need to go back through this because there's so many messages here. And I'm hoping to bring that to you. I know that it's been done to death, but I don't think that it's been done well. I've seen many people decode it, but they miss so much stuff. And I know that it's a lot to decode this, and there's a lot there. There's a lot there that people miss. And it would probably take me more than 1 or 2 or 3 videos because to go over it the way I want to, but there is so much encoded in that it cannot be chance. Well, would it surprise you if I told you that the burning down of Notre Dame is in that animation? Would that surprise you? Because it is. And you know what happens simultaneously in that video? Right after the church burns down, which is a symbol of Christianity, the Antichrist, the figure that many people point and said, no, that's Jesus. No, it's not. That figure in that animation does not represent Jesus. He represents the Antichrist, and he's floating on this boat, and he actually comes out of what symbolizes a birth canal along with blood and water. I mean, there's red in the water. There's blood and water. He comes out of this birth canal riding on this boat, and he has his eyes shut like he's in a trance. And of course, the 2 elements of birth are blood and water, of course. So he comes out of this, and to the side, you see Notre Dame crumble. It's very recognizable as Notre Dame, and that's why that spire was so important. That spire falling was so important because that is what is captured in that animation from 2012, I believe it came out. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's when it came out. Anyway, so they were telling us beforehand, and what happened at the same time? The Antichrist figure opens his eyes. He awakens. It is symbolic. I'm just presenting this. What happened to Notre Dame is symbolic of the dying of real Christianity and the raising of that which is everything against Christian, the Antichrist. It happened during Holy Week because what happened during Holy Week? The death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So isn't it interesting that we have this Christ figure in this film, and right beside where he's coming through this canal, we have Notre Dame crumbling behind him. Let's take a look. Now again, let's look. This is the Antichrist figure in this, and it's called I Pet Goat 2, and I'm right, it's from 2012. You can find it out on YouTube. There are a zillion videos decoding it, but I have not found any that actually touch on everything that's in there. And it could be because of time. It could be that nobody wanted to do a video that long or a series, but I'm thinking that it might be important to do that because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in here that could help us decode what's happening around us right now. Anyway, this is the Antichrist figure. We know that because he's got the enlightened third eye. He's also got the triangle on his head. He is the Luciferian Christ, not the Christ, and he is being brought out. And the I think the boat that he's riding on has the dog head, which is like the god of the dead. Very interesting. Let's watch this. Now I'm going to actually, I just thought about this. I'm going to turn the sound off on this because of YouTube. I don't want them to take this down because of copyright, and also it's not really needed. We need the visual, not the music. All right, now let's get this. Where do I? Okay, there we go. All right, now watch. Now this figure has just come out of this right here, and out with him came blood and water, symbolic of birth. And now he is riding in this boat. The head of the boat has that dog head, which is symbolic of death. And here is Notre Dame. Now, I think almost anybody can recognize this as Notre Dame, really. It's quite recognizable. Now, let's watch as the spire falls, okay? Starting to crumble, and there goes the spire. Similarities? I think so. So what do you make of that? How can you tell me that this was not planned? You think it's a coincidence? Because I don't. I really don't. So I'm going to leave that there with you. I'm going to put the link to this young man's video. And if you would like, if you are interested, let me know in the comments that you do want me to do a full decode of I Pet Goat 2. A lot of stuff in it. A lot. As I was looking deeper into it yesterday, all of a sudden I was catching things that I had not caught, and I'm telling you, I've looked at that video probably 100 times by now because I recognized right away that they had encoded things into it that had meaning. They always let us know beforehand, always. So that's it for this video, okay? Let me know in the comments below what you think, and I will hopefully be back tonight with another video. I am planning on it at any rate, so I'm going to cut it off for now, and thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all and all your support and so forth. Very, very important and very appreciated. Thank you guys, and I will hopefully talk to you real soon.